so we are now broadcasting live. We are on the air here with Distill Speakers Richard Watson and Konstantin Hasse, who will both be speaking at the Distill Conference in San Francisco, August 8th and 9th on Treasure Island in San Francisco, which I already said that. Let's say, Konstantin, do you want to go first and tell us a little bit about what your talk's going to be about?
Sure. So I'm going to give a talk that's provocatively called Death to Cookies, which is actually more about, so it's actually a lot about cookies and also a lot about security, because I think most security flaws that most websites have that go beyond the basic cross-site scripting attack are based on the way that we use cookies, that it's also not exactly what they're meant for. Like, I don't have anything against cookies in general, but it's kind of a half-baked solution for all the authentication, et cetera, what it's using for. And so I'll give a talk where I start with a website that basically has no security measures in place, and then step through simple attacks on that and show how you protect against those, and continue until it gets harder and harder to protect against certain attacks that are all based on cookie or how we use cookies.
Right on. Now, I couldn't help but notice you kind of injected a lot of puns into that about cookies being half-baked and things like that. Can we expect a lot more of that in your talk?
Of course.
Awesome. Awesome. Puns are always appreciated in this community. Richard, do you want to tell us a little bit about what you're talking about? Richard, I see that you're moving, but I don't hear anything. Uh-oh, I think we lost... Richard, are you there? Oh, we lost Richard. Nope, he's still there. All right, this is amazing technology. All right, so let's see. While we wait to be able to hear Richard, let's see. Does anybody else have questions that they'd like to pose to Konstantin? Or, you know, I can get Richard through Skype, or we can get him in the chat and try to go that way, if that works. Anybody?
So I do have a question. So I reviewed your talk as part of the Distill selection team, and obviously you were right that the title was very inflammatory, but I thought it was fantastic. And obviously that's one of the reasons it was selected. So Death to Cookies. Cookies are quite integral. I mean, they've been around on the web since 1994 when they created by the guys at Netscape, I believe. I think they actually credit Mark Andreessen for kind of creating cookies. How long do you think it's going to be before we move beyond cookies?
So that's a tough question, and I don't think we need to actually move away from cookies for everything. It's basically the main issue about moving away from cookies is that there are not many alternatives in place that just work with static pages. Mm-hmm. So, for instance, one of the solutions I will present that you can use today is only possible if you actually have a rich client on the other end. If you can handle authentication, authorization over JavaScript, which is what we do at Travis CI, which obviously comes at the cost of having a rich client on the other end. Yeah, so the basic problem is that authentication with cookies works well, but authorization basically not. So you know that the request is probably coming from the person that it's supposed to come from, but you don't know if the request is actually legit. This is like one of the big problems that you where all the simple CSRF attacks are what they are about. And I actually think that, I'm not entirely sure what it should look like, but I think that actually there's a big problem with browsers. I mean, as the maintainer of Sinatra, I'm also like easily blaming stuff on browsers instead of the server-side end. But I actually feel like that it's just one part where browsers don't provide enough integration with HTTP, actually.
So, I mean, HTTP obviously is a stateless protocol. Cookies are intended to be used, or are used, for helping to maintain state. So they're kind of almost antithetical to HTTP as a whole anyhow. But it seems like we need some sort of cryptographic communications means so maybe it's like public key SSL, where both sides do the handshake and each person actually has their own client-side SSL certificate, right?
Yeah, that works better for actually making sure that no one tampered with the request. Mm-hmm. But you would still have the same issue of where you could do a cross-site request forgery attack.
Sure.
And the same goes with, like, even if you would do basic auth, you actually need mechanisms where you can, which, for instance, Rails or rec protection try to solve with access tokens, where you need to make sure that a request actually comes from within a legit workflow, that actually a post request is triggered from something in your site that's supposed to trigger that post request and not from something else. And that is also not solved by client-side SSL certificates.
Very cool. All right, we're going to try Richard again. Richard, I can see you and I can hear you. It's a miracle.
Okay, excellent. Okay, we have connectivity to the West of Ireland. That's great. So you asked me
no longer a third world country.
My talk is really a call for developers and system architects to stop doing what they're doing and to stop naively deploying applications to cloud platforms and expecting to get these magical benefits that we hear about from clouds, that they are scalable and self-service and utility priced. And the problem I see in advising clients and building systems for the last, I don't know, well, let's say 5 years of clouds and 20 years of distributed systems in total, is that people are just approaching this from a naive point of view. And again, what I want people to do is to design cloud-aware applications. So this idea that you can take an application that wasn't designed for a cloud and deploy it onto a cloud platform, from a code point of view, it may work fine. And but from an end-to-end system characteristic point of view, you're not going to get all these magical benefits, because you need to design an application to take advantage of the infrastructure or the platform characteristics, or to work around it in your code by using known design patterns that actually allow you to exploit the infrastructure. And it may come as a shock to people, and I guess I want to shock people into understanding that this idea that you can write once and run anywhere, or write once and run on any cloud, that's over. That's not going to work anymore, because clouds have different characteristics, different performance characteristics, different, but more importantly, different failure characteristics. So they perform and they fail in different ways. And so if you're going to get the most out of your application on a particular cloud, you need to design that application around those characteristics. And that's basically what my talk is about. It's about asking people to go back and say, think about why you're deploying this application onto this cloud. What characteristics are you hoping to get out of it? What business problem are you trying to solve? Are you trying to solve a scalability problem? Are you trying to see price by utility problem? Are you trying to solve an input workload problem? Then you need to design your application with particular principles in mind to take advantage of the power that running on a cloud platform can give you. And so this is it's a polemic, really, and you know, it's not an engineered marketing approved message, because actually what I want people to do is to sort of stop doing what they're doing. It's to sort of say, I want to remove the frictionless approach. I want people to stop and think about what are the right design patterns for cloud architecture. So the things that we've been very comfortable with, you know, and this is probably going back 15 years of the N-tier web model. We've become very comfortable with, you know, the MVC architecture, synchronous web requests, and that stuff doesn't work in a cloud environment. It doesn't work because you're not designing software that's resilient, that's able to tolerate failure, that's able to tolerate latency, that's able to tolerate you know, the sort of unusual multi-factor distributed systems that you're actually building when you deploy on a cloud platform. So what I'm asking them to do is to build a catalog of design patterns that they can use, such as using asynchronous event handling code, using parallelizable code and data, using eventual consistency rather than, let's say, regular transactional integrity, and build up a palette of these design patterns that they can use to construct applications.
Awesome.
So you can see I'm kind of, how do you see? I'm the kind of the I wouldn't say I'm the angry cloud guy, but I'm certainly, I've seen enough. You know, what I don't want to see is people with unrealistic expectations, people deploying applications onto clouds kind of naively, using it as just a storage unit. One of the things you'll see in my talk is the picture of a self storage unit, which is, you know, some people's conception of the cloud market, that there's all this space out there, and the storage units have room, and really all you have to do is pick up your stuff and move it out there. But you know what? If you do that, it doesn't mean you've dealt with it in any meaningful way. You've just moved it out, and now it doesn't work terribly well with the stuff you've got back at home, and you know, it's a mess you've left to deal with. And so what I want is people to think about things in a different way.
Right, and I think that makes sense. I think what you're saying is, I think a lot of people came at cloud because it was the new hotness, without any real understanding of how the technology worked or how it could really be expanded to work even better. So I think that'll be interesting, and you're also going to help us out with the pre-Distill workshop the day before, right?
Yeah, I'm very excited about that. So that's an opportunity for everyone at Distill to come down and spend time with engineers, support engineers, and developer evangelists, and people who've been kind of embedded in engineering for years, but also people who've been embedded in the cloud market for years, and can really give a basic, you know, just a retrospective about how we got here and what the differences are between the different models, and, you know, why you would use an infrastructure provider over a platform as a service provider, over doing it yourself, and when are those appropriate choices.
Right on, right on. And I, you know, you said that you didn't want to come off as the angry cloud guy, but I think you more come off as someone who's just very invigorated by the ideas there, and you want to make sure it's done right. So I don't think there's a negative connotation there, I think, is what I'm trying to say.
No, it's I mean, it's totally that. You know, I believe fundamentally we're at a real shift in the industry, and these shifts come maybe every.
Richard? Oh my God, we're never going to know what he's going to say. When are these shifts going to... Oh my God. It's going to be a mystery. I think we lost you again, Richard.
is one of the most exciting ones I've seen.
Okay, just so you know, we lost you right at these shifts only come every blank, and then you finish with the most exciting thing I've ever seen. So whatever happened in between those two things, we missed all of that.
Yeah, so that's a motivation to come to my talk and
So these are all teasers then.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So can you hear me again?
Yes, you are back online again.
Okay, great.
Let me
yeah,
ask.
no, I'm basically I'm very I'm excited that developers have all of this self-service computing utility power at their fingertips, and really our imagination and our ability to build reliable and performant systems is really the only thing that's constraining us from building, amazing things. And really, for me, the cloud is really about doing two things. One is about building the types of systems that we've been building those cheaper, faster, lower cost, lower number of developers, and really cranking those out very quickly. But the other thing that the cloud enables is making the impossible possible, right? It's the model that allows me to go and rent a supercomputer for if I need to. It's the model that allows me to launch a web company with myself and my co-founder, and not have to worry about infrastructure, because we'll pay for it when we get there. And that's, for me, that's making the impossible possible, and that's where the shift is.
Right on. That totally makes sense. Let me open it up a bit. Does everybody, Raphael, Bud, Evan, Will, do any of you guys have any questions for the speakers here? Did I just lose everybody? Holy cow, what just happened? Let's see, Will says, I do not. All right. All right, I'll ask Konstantin. Konstantin, you speak a lot. Have you given this talk about cookies before?
No, this is the first time.
Okay, so this is like a premiere presentation then.
Yeah. I also tried to, when I started speaking a lot, I submitted the same 4 talks to all the conferences, and then every conference accepted the same proposal, basically, and I got so annoyed by giving the same talk 9 times that I tried to not give a talk more than once or twice, actually.
I think that makes sense. But so, I mean, just stylistically, then, as you have that one talk that you're giving, in the background, you're already building up a second talk?
So, yeah, what I actually have is, I actually have a couple of talks in mind for future conferences right now, which is actually like more than just one talk for the next conference, which is, I think, really important if you do a lot of conferences, because conferences are not evenly spread out throughout the year. They're like 3 hotspots of conferences where they're all happening basically at the same time, where I even was in the situation that I had to choose which conference to go to because they're conferences at the same weekend, which is actually a pretty nice problem to have.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
But yeah, so I have ideas for like 2 or 3 talks already for when I'm done with this year's conference season. It's all just like general ideas rather than fully thought out talks. So I actually don't really start preparing the talk like in detail until the conference tells me, yes, we want that talk.
Right.
Usually.
So you just kind of build the abstract and a little bit of the idea behind it, and then once it's accepted, you say, all right, I guess I should make some slides.
Yeah, kind of.
That makes sense. Now, on the other side, Richard, have you given this talk yet as well? I'll ask you that question as well. Has this talk been presented anywhere else? Are you there? Nope. All right, we won't ask Richard that question. But Konstantin, going back to what we were kind of talking about, the fact that it seems like usually the conference season has this like these three main clumps.
Oh, Richard is back.
Oh, Richard's back. All right, well, I'll finish this question and let you answer it, and then we'll go back to Richard. But the three main clumps. It seems like this year, and this is, I mean, I was for years I was a Ruby and Rails developer before I joined Engineer, and it seemed like it was always like we had this kind of end of May to beginning of September time frame that there were like conferences. There'd be like one a month. And now it's like 3 and 4 a month with all the regionals tossed in, and it goes more like from February to October. Do you agree that we're kind of seeing a bigger concentration of smaller conferences?
Yes, but I don't think this is actually a bad thing. I've actually you're really like the regional conferences are usually. It's hard to generalize, but I really like regional conferences with a smaller set of speakers, which are not multi-track, because you actually mingle way more with the audience rather than having like all the speakers just hang out with all the speakers, which would basically mean meeting the same people all over the world.
Exactly.
Yeah, so I actually prefer going to smaller regional conferences.
Right, which is I feel like that's kind of what Distill has the feel of. Like it's kind of an international conference, but at the same time it's kind of regional in the fact that it's a small population of people coming to one place, and it is probably primarily going to be people from the west coast of the U.S. With a smattering of other things. But I mean, I think another good example. Richard and I just attended Ruby Lyon, which is now Ruby Lug Dunham, a couple weeks ago, which had that nice, small kind of regional feel.
Yeah, this was actually the first year that I was not at that conference.
Oh, you missed a good time.
I think it's really interesting that it's also not just a Ruby thing. It happening in every tech community that I see. It's JavaScript, PHP, Java. I mean, every single community is having the exact same type of renaissance of conferences happening right now.
Richard is now on the call twice.
That's impressive.
And it looks like he's looking at himself.
Technology!
So, Richard, let me ask you this. Have you given this talk that you're giving it to Distill? Have you given it anywhere else yet?
Assuming you can hear me.
We can hear you.
Okay, great. So this talk is... I've given it before in various different formats. One of the formats has been in like a half-day workshop where I work with developers, and we go through those 6 principles of cloud-aware design. And in each of those principles, so I talk about the principle of applications that are failure-aware, latency-aware, event-driven, parallelizable, resource consumption-aware, and probably 1 or 2 others that I can't think of. Within each of those principles, of course, you can't write code with principles, right? So you got to have a catalog of design patterns that implement each of those principles. And the workshop I do basically goes through in a fairly low level, implement those design principles for various cloud platforms.
I think we just lost Richard again. I'm really looking forward to Richard's talk, if only because it'll be continuous. But yeah, so I don't know. At this point, I'm really excited about this.
So it's
Richard's back.
It's very much in these principles.
Yeah. Wait, Richard, are you there? Yes.
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me again?
Yes, we can hear you again.
Okay. So the talk I'm giving at Distill is 30 minutes. So it's a distillation of those principles and some examples of design patterns that support those principles of cloud-aware design, and also some anti-patterns, which are equally as important to know, so that you can kind of route around them as you're developing code and deploying applications onto cloud platforms. So it's hitting the highlights of what is in other times a very detailed workshop. So I'm very excited about sharing some of these ideas with the audience at Distill, and really seeing, in particular, I suppose, from my own selfish ends, for seeing like where is the state of the art with the audience for Distill in terms of what they're doing in cloud.
And I think we'll be able to get that both from the pre-Distill workshop and from your session in general. I think it'll be a little more interactive, where people will be able to kind of get their ideas across and be able to communicate that back to you.
So Bud has a question, and Evan asked one. So
yeah, I am a programmer turned web designer, turning back to web development, and one of the things I'm curious about, I don't remember. I mean, like in all my sites that I build, I don't ever remember dealing with cookies at all directly. Does that mean that I don't have anything to worry about, or whatever?
So usually, how people deal with cookies is by using the session. Have you used a session, like in a Rails application or in PHP or wherever? Those are actually using cookies under the hood. Or well, in the early days of PHP, it appended something to the URL, which was even worse, because when you copied around the URL, someone else had your session. Yes, so usually if you use the session for authentication or user identification or for any critical data, then you are using cookies.
Okay, thank you.
And Evan asked a question that Richard answered in text. You may want to.
Yeah. So yeah, Evan asked, "What's the biggest issue to look out for?" to Richard, and Richard, do you want to kind of expand upon that? Because I know chat is sometimes tough.
Well, I rather egoistically assumed that Evan was asking me that question. And the biggest issue, like what are the biggest bad smells in code that you want to deploy onto clouds, or the most glaring anti-patterns? And so this is where you get to things like the typical n-tier web model, where you're dealing with a synchronous request-response loop that goes and retrieves data and renders a page and does all that synchronously, and it's completely full of timeouts and retries and so on, and all of that stuff makes it very brittle. And if there's ever an extended a delay because you're going across public networks, or even within zones in cloud data centers, then that code isn't resilient to that. The other thing that is most glaring in terms of problems on clouds are things like if there's a single point of bottleneck in the code, and that's a very easy thing to put into your code. And in fact, once you sort of systematically reduce bottlenecks, you're always going to have bottlenecks somewhere. It's a case of being aware of where they are, and good engineering practices to kind of spread them out, and not have load sensitive, not have going through a single resource. And it's very easy to create a single point of bottleneck in your code, like depending on a shared database or a single external web service or something like that. So yeah, code with a single point of bottleneck or even a series of bottlenecks is just that bit harder to parallelize. And of course, if you can't parallelize your code or the processing of the data, then you're not going to be able to scale out and take advantage of the scalability model that most clouds offer.
Right on. Awesome. So I do have a question for the two guys who I don't have the answer to this for. Bud and Raphael, are you guys planning on coming to Distill?
Again?
Are you guys planning on attending Distill? Do you already have tickets? Do you need tickets? Yeah.
When is it?
August 8th and 9th in San Francisco.
No, I'm in Sweden.
You're in Sweden.
Yep.
Life is hard.
I'm in Northwest Ohio, so I could come, but probably won't, because it's in, across the country from me.
Well, the funny thing is, Bud, I'm in Buffalo, New York.
Oh, I can't complain then.
And I'm in Florida. So.
Yeah, and Davey's in Florida. Evan is also in Florida. Will is in Michigan.
Yeah.
Konstantin's in Germany.
Yeah, I saw that.
Which is kind of a bigger trip.
Yeah.
But Bud, if you are interested, get a hold of me. I'm pretty easy to find online. But we can help you out with getting you maybe a discounted ticket so you can make it there. Raphael, if for some reason you don't want to go to Sweden, I don't know why you wouldn't want to go to Sweden, but I can help you out as well. But I think we're going to wrap this up for now. I want to thank you guys for coming and hanging out with us.
I have a question for Konstantin.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, so I'm wondering if there are no sessions, so how advertising will work?
Advertising.
Yeah, like track advertising, like how Google knows how to.
So usually, if you take away the part where Google is tracking every step you do or whatever, usually that is actually a part where the use of cookies is totally fine, because that's not critical to your application. It's more about Google knowing that those requests are coming from the same computer that you're actually returning that's for statistics. But those are not, you don't gain access to critical data through that or are allowed to perform actions that you actually wouldn't perform willingly through the Google tracking cookie. That's a totally valid use case for cookies.
Is there any other way to track users? In another way than cookies?
Well, not reliable way. So there are other things that are also called cookies. If you have JavaScript, what you could also do is, for instance, write something to local storage, and then when JavaScript is loaded again, use that token thing and send it back, which would mean that there's no cookie that will be sent on every request.
But then you need
on a higher level, that will be really similar.
But you need very advanced browsers for that, right?
Well, local storage has been supported in most. Okay, so if you want it to work in Internet Explorer 6, then no, you cannot use that. No. But it has been in Firefox, Chrome, and even Internet Explorer, I think, for quite a while now.
All right. It's a very interesting topic, Konstantin.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to both these talks. I think they're going to be pretty exciting. I'll have to make sure that they're not put on tracks where they're conflicting with each other, so I can go to both of them.
I think I didn't hear any talks about cookies for a long time. Konstantin will remind me this PHP time with the sessions, and it's very interesting. This issue is back.
Well, I think. Go ahead, Konstantin.
Or the right now. Fitter, happier, chart your team's health with Fitbit. That actually sounds interesting too.
So
I've always had the problem at conferences that I'm always scheduled against the one talk that I want to go see. Luckily at Distill we are planning on recording the sessions and making them available to attendees. So if anyone misses anything, they can watch it later.
Yeah, if worse comes to worse. But yeah, I want to thank you guys for coming out, especially because I know that I think Konstantin, it's like 9 o'clock at night, and Richard, I know that I mean, beyond the fact that it's beyond work hours, you're also on vacation. So thank you so much for taking the time out to come and talk to us, and we will see you guys in San Francisco.
Thank you, PJ.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, everybody, for coming. We'll talk
Thanks,
to you soon.
PJ.
Thanks,
Bye,
guys.
everyone.
Bye.